Hey there.
Chris, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic. Great to see you.
You too. You got the pro mic. I like it.
How do you not have a pro mic? What is this?
I do. I'm just at home. That is, of course, what you've got there is the industry gold standard mic of choice.
The
But
pod. Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
I'm in my little home office right now, so I don't have. This is actually pretty good. This is for travel. This little Apogee hype mic works pretty darn good.
You know what I've been doing? Because I've been traveling and doing some podcasting. And you know what I've found works really great is an SM58. Like works killer for podcasting.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. I mean that. Yeah, that's like that's the mic that you can just kick the shit out of, and
Like I
it
was
never
doing
complains and it always does its job.
it's like I was doing these panels at some conferences and I was like, what am I gonna bring? And I threw like four of them in my bag. And I
Nice.
listened back to the audio and I was like, these sound incredible. Like
Yeah,
they're
there you go. Plus,
why
you
would
can get up and, if you got a long enough cable, you can get up and walk around the stage and drop the mic and,
you can
yeah,
do all that stuff. I
yeah,
know. It's
totally.
amazing.
Yeah.
Great to see you. So wait, so you're in LA right now or West
I,
Coast?
yeah, I'm in LA. I'm at home.
Nice.
I will
Fantastic.
warn you that every time I do one of these home interviews, my cats are like relentless. I try to shut the door and then they come and they bang on the door. So we might get disturbed here at some point.
It's fine. It's fine. We're gonna make it work. The cat's named after the whiskey and go-go, right?
Yeah,
The
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. I
Um
realized I interviewed Alex Lifeson recently, and in preparing for that, I was talking to my brother, and who's a giant Rush fan, and the reason that I grew up listening to Rush, and I realized I have a real missed opportunity where I should have named my cats Bytor and Snow Dog, but next time, next time.
is that episode out yet? Your interview with
It
Alex?
No, the show isn't out yet. It's a new thing that I'm working on and just and doing a bunch of interviews for now, and we're gonna make like a formal announcement soon and start dropping episodes in the summertime. But yeah, it's really fun. It's a different thing from my Walking the Floor podcast, but it's more guitar focused.
Was there something you always wanted to ask Alex that you got the opportunity to ask? Like, what do you ask Alex?
Well, the premise of the show is I'm interviewing guitar players and having them basically teach me one of their. Usually, it's like one of their. If it's a lead guitar player, it's one of their iconic solos. And if it's somebody, I interviewed Nile Rodgers and I interviewed Blake from Jawbreaker just yesterday, and those guys are like not known for their lead guitar work exactly. So we went over other, the riffs and the chords and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it's basically like it's whoever I'm interviewing is teaching me how to play one of their songs, essentially.
This is
So
just
that
so this is an excuse for you to just get guitar lessons
one hundred
from these
million
people.
percent.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, and that's
exactly.
why, and it's not genre focused at all. It's like all over the shop. Like I've interviewed Rivers from Weezer, Lindsay L, Charlie from Blackberry Smoke, Blake, Nile Rodgers, Alex Lifeson. I interviewed Richie Sambora. He taught me the guitar solo for Wanted Dead or Alive. And I've got a bunch of other interviews, great folks lined up that I won't mention now because I haven't done them. But it's going to be really good. Like it's going to be a wide range of guitar styles.
Do you get a different nuance learning from him? Because I feel like that's a solo, the Richie Sambora solo, for example. Like I feel like you could listen and kind of pick out that solo and probably get pretty
Sure,
close. But when he
but
teaches it,
it's
do you get different nuances?
with all of them, yeah, because really there's so much to eat to any guitar player has their little subtleties and nuances. With every single one of them so far has been eye opening in
Yeah.
just the little things. And that's the stuff you miss, like when you're just figuring it out by ear. That's the stuff that's harder to kind of figure out, or even like watching. I've sort of the way that I figure stuff out in the modern age is a few different things. I listen to the record, whatever it is, and just try to see if I can figure it out from that. I'll look for video footage on YouTube of whoever it is actually playing it live, if you can find it, and just kind of see where their hands are at. And then, it's 2023. There's like almost any song you could think of. There's like 100 different people on YouTube explaining how to play it, but they all explain it. There's a lot of people that get pretty close, but it's not like exactly right. and exactly right doesn't really even matter to me that much, but it is fun to sit and see, um, like how people really did these little movements, that make that it's like you don't quite register, but you feel it in some weird way. I mean, I've always been the type of person as a player that I just like to like try to learn the spirit of a song or a guitar solo or something more than the actual, like, I have to learn every single note and know it
Yeah.
exactly. But it is super fun to like see what the person actually did. You know what I mean? And then
Was that
you can mess it up in your own way.
was that a progression? Like, I remember when I was a young guitar player, I was obsessed with learning everything note for note, and I would spend like an hour being like, what is that one little thing? And then as I've gotten older, I've been like, I don't really care as much as long as I kind of get the feeling of it or the vibe of it. Like, was that a
Yeah, yeah,
progression
yeah.
for you? Where you like at some point you're like, whatever, like let me just play the feel of this and we're good here.
I mean, I was never much somebody that would learn anything note for note when I was real young, but the sort of the turning point for me was when we started doing those Me First and the Gimme Gimmes records, because we would sit there and figure out these songs. There's all cover songs, and we'd figure out these songs, and I was really stuck in like, this is how the song goes. You not so much note for note, but like, this is the structure of the song and it has to be played this way because this is how Billy Joel played it, and we have to do it, in the exact same structure. And it was really Fat Mike that would just always be like, no, we don't. We can do it however we want. We can change the chords, and we would. You know what I mean? And that was like, that kind of changed my perception of like, it's fun to try to do stuff close to the record, but it's also fun to just mess it up, and in a loud barroom environment, and like, nobody cares as long as they're having a
Yeah,
good
right.
time.
There was, you played in Taylor Hawkins' like heavy metal band, or he had like a shred band,
Oh, Chevy Metal, yeah,
Chevy
yeah,
Metal.
yeah,
And there
yeah.
was a moment where I guess you were like, you felt like your heavy metal chops weren't up to snuff or whatever. So you took some
Oh
lessons
yeah,
from Paul Gilbert.
I did. Yeah,
And
I did.
first of all, I feel this way too, because I feel like I'm a competent guitar player for what it's worth, but like I'm not comfortable playing Van Halen tunes or shredding or doing any of that. So I relate
Well,
to you on this. But what does
well,
Paul
that
teach you? What does Paul Gilbert teach you?
God, I would have to go back, and look at what those lessons were. Although I don't think I had like a video. That was like way before Zoom and all that stuff, so I don't have any record of it. He taught me, like you're right. It was at that point when I was playing in Chevy Metal, and for the first time, like, I never learned Van Halen songs and that type of stuff when I was a kid because I just couldn't play like that, and I, to be perfectly frank, still can't play like that.
Yeah. I
But
always
I
thought as I
wanted,
got older, I would just magically know how to play those songs. And then that never
yeah.
happened.
No, what happens is you get older and you just magically care less about nailing it.
Yes, that
Um, and somebody, a player like Eddie Van Halen, it's like nobody can really do what he did. So like, that's the classic example. Like, just get into the wheelhouse and the spirit. Maybe look where his hands are and try to do something that's kind of high speed. And so that's what I was doing. But you're right. Like, I was like, I periodically go through phases like this where like, I'm gonna learn, how to really like do like crazy alternate picking, super fast stuff. And I would shed on that stuff for a little bit and never get it really down. And then kind of you get cared, you just get busy with something else and you forget for a while and then you come back to it. It's kind of like the same way I periodically sit down and try to learn how to play pedal steel. And I'll sit there and I'll work through a couple things and kind of get it going, and not really going because that's also like impossible. And then you just get, if Foo Fighters are busy, if if I'm busy with my, solo stuff, if I'm busy with my podcast, if I'm like writing songs, then I just like, that part of my brain shuts down, and I just focus on other stuff. But yeah, my main memory of taking, I don't remember if it was one or two lessons from Paul Gilbert, was that he was just really cool, man. He was a really nice guy. I'd never met him before. He's obviously a phenomenal guitar player, and I probably should have stuck with that. Maybe I'd have better chops now.
But when you learn like a Van Halen song, are you learning it with like a slow downer, and are you doing it by ear, or are you watching a YouTube video and seeing what a million other people have done with, say, Eruption or whatever it is?
All of the above. Yeah. I mean, I have that amazing slower downer app. And I've had that for years and I love that. The problem with slowing stuff down for rock music, it's great now because you can find isolated tracks um, on out on the internet, and that's if you can find an isolated track for something that helps a lot. But when you're slowing down like an Ozzy Osbourne song, and trying to figure out a Randy Rhoads thing. First off, those solos are like probably triple tracked or something. So there's like you've got all these they're not exactly perfect things lining up, and when you slow that down, it starts to create these weird sounds that almost make it more confusing in a way. And you have the music that it's sitting over, which is also starts to get all and that makes it, and it just
I
turns into this
struggle
sort of
with this.
soupy
Yes.
sludge. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So yeah, if you can find um the isolated tracks, that's the best. It's Randy Rhoads. That's the hardest one because there's so little footage of him playing those songs, and a lot of those songs they probably never played live off those two albums that he did, and so it's you can't find a lot of footage of him actually playing live to see where his hands are, and it's Richter fast, and like I said, triple tracked or whatever, quadruple tracked, and they're all kind of varying a little bit, so it's hard to know like exactly what he did, but there's some folks out there on the internet that get pretty close probably, and you know a
Well,
lot of that stuff
yeah.
for me is like it's like you basically have to like relearn to play guitar, and I'm just too old and set in my ways to do that, as much as I would love to.
I know this. I feel like I'm never going to be a great shredder. And then I see someone do it and I go, oh God, I should work on that because how great would it be to have 25% of that? But then it's like,
Right.
you never get it.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of like I was a few years ago, I was in a swim group here at home. It's like a swim training class. I like to swim laps, and it was
Yeah.
great. And I was talking to the coach because everybody in those classes was like people that do triathlons. And I'd never done one. I still never done one. And I was talking to him about it, and I was like, "Oh man, that sounds fun. I'd really like to try that." And he goes, "I remember the coach just goes, yeah, but look at all these people. Like, are you really like you're gonna invest that much time to what? Be like the 300th guy in the triath? Like, who cares?" And that's kind of how I feel about learning to shred. It's like, am I really gonna invest all that time and that to get? And I don't know, man. I do what I do, and it's worked out.
Yeah. Is there a frontier that you think about? Like maybe it is the shred space, or are you like this? I got a bag of tricks and like that's great.
Oh no, I mean I love learning. So that's like why I'm starting this new show. I love learning stuff. I feel like um for like you could sit down and woodshed on like 50 ripping licks, and you're gonna maybe really, really internalize one or two of them and actually incorporate it into what you do. At least for me. Maybe that's
Yeah.
not for anybody else, but for me, I'll sit and I'll watch like, I've got like a giant stack of instructional DVDs and stuff, and work through some of that stuff, and you'll work through a whole DVD, and you'll really only, it's like only a couple things really make it into what you do. And I'm the type of player that if I don't just do it over and over and over and over and a million times, then I don't really learn it. So I have to figure out a way to actually get it into my playing. Um, and then little bits and bobs stick along the way. So I mean, I love, like, don't get me wrong, I love always kind of learning and always evolving. And I feel like I'm a much player, more well-rounded guitar player now than I was when I was 18 or something. But I can't play like I did when I was 18 because I just don't have that spark anymore. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm a different thing now than I was. I'm a different thing than I was 10 years ago or 20 years ago. You know what I mean? And I can't do. I couldn't comfortably go play a set with No Use for a Name right now. Could probably work up to it, but I don't have that
That down
coordination anymore
picking
because you know what I
jump
mean. I just
thing. Yeah.
haven't
Yeah.
done it for so long. Like I would have to learn it again.
Yeah. I'm excited to talk about the solo stuff. I want to ask though, like specifically on this topic, I feel like one of my favorite guitar players is Don Rich, who I know you love
Oh
also.
yeah,
And
yeah,
those licks, like I feel like I've learned so many licks from so many guitar players, but learning those Don Rich licks, even though they're so simple, those
yeah.
licks stick with me. Like I think about those all the time, even if I'm doing something fast or whatever. Like that's to me, he's like the BB King of country music, which is maybe insane to say,
Yeah.
But it's like you hear that stuff everywhere. It's so simple. Like, did you sit down and learn all those little things and those solos? And was that stuff that really stuck with you?
Yes and no. I mean, I certainly have played through many, many Buckaroo songs over the years. And I mean, Don Rich is such an interesting player because, all most of those songs, it's like it's that '60s honky tonk country style. So it's most of it's like big cowboy chords, open chords. It's all 1 4 5 kind of
Yeah.
chord progressions. And there's Don Rich playing almost everything in a minor pentatonic scale over that, whereas most people would be leaning more on like the major pentatonic and throwing in like the flat seven and the minor third and all that those sort of moves. And he does that, sure, but like, and he'll bend that minor third kind of give it a little style tweak up to the major third, you know what I mean? Just but it's all
Yeah,
that
totally. Yeah.
all that stuff. It's weird. I mean, you know what I mean? Like he was really kind of like, oh, he was a one of a kind. Nobody really you can He's another guy that like is you listen to it and you go, man, that's so easy. And then you try to play it and you're like, how the fuck is he doing that? Like it is not easy, man. That's where like personality and style come into it, I think.
That's where I feel like, and even tonally, like I would try to get sort of that like woody Telecaster tone out of my telly. I'm like, it sounds too clean, even though it sounds like a
Yeah.
bridge pickup and something like he's got this grit to it.
Okay, I don't know if this is true, but this is what I was told. Because I had that conversation a long time ago with my friend Eddie that plays guitar in the Mavericks. Because he knows that style inside and out, and is a master of it. And I was like, God, man, I got a telly, I've got a deluxe reverb, I'm playing these songs, I'm playing the licks. Why the fuck doesn't it sound like those guys? And he said because those guys in that era were all playing flat wound strings,
Is
which
that what
I don't know. I mean, that's what Eddie told me. I don't know who told him that, but I've got some flat wound strings and strung up my telly, and it does sound great, and it sounds a lot more like that thing. So I don't know. Maybe
don't you think
that's
it's
it.
I also felt like it was the half step thing. Like, weren't they tuned down a half step? And
Oh,
that gives it
I think so.
like a
Yeah, I
little
think so.
more
Yeah,
something that's
yeah.
like, yeah. But like I've spent endless time trying to learn those records and they're so silly. Like they don't sound that crazy, but they're unbelievable.
Well, if you look at their recorded output, the Buckaroos recorded so much music. Like you get that box set of the Capitol years or whatever, and
Yeah.
it's just millions and millions of songs. And you know, um, so the story goes, Buck was like a real taskmaster, and you couldn't get a second take or whatever, so you had to have that stuff wired. So I feel like that's that, and maybe that's like a classic example of like they had their thing, they had their this is like these are the handful of things that we're gonna do on any given song, and you gotta have that shit wired because if you make us take that third take, like you're getting fined.
You're done. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Oh my God.
Because they're all kind of a certain formula, you know what I mean? But they recorded like gazillions of them.
Yeah, like there's so many Don Rich solos that are like basically the same, but like a little different. And it's like
Yeah,
you could
yeah.
tell like what he's thinking. Like once you learn that bag of tricks, it's like you sort of know what he's gonna do, and that's like putting the puzzle pieces together with it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
this
sure. And
this
then you've
yeah.
got Merle Haggard's guitar player, and all these guys were around at the each other at
Roy
the same
Nichols.
time.
Yeah.
Roy Nichols, totally different guitar player. You know what I mean? Like, and you look at those records, and probably the Buck records too. I don't know, but like those Merle records from that same era, like mid '60s, late '60s, and the lineup of guitar players he would have on his stuff. But I think Roy Nichols was the guy that was just like playing a guitar solo from start to finish. You know what I mean? On a lot of those
Yeah,
songs, you're
right,
like,
right.
what? Like, how do you do that? Like, how do you even learn that? And when you take that out of the song, you really miss it. You know?
Do you like I remember when I got into this genre and it felt like such a breath of fresh air of just a totally different style of playing from anything that you were hearing that I was hearing in like classic rock or alt rock, like the open string licks and the chicken picking. Like,
Yeah.
is that kind of what happened to you? Like, were you sort of like, I feel like I know every classic rock riff, and then this was like a new frontier of repertoire to learn?
I mean, I never felt like I knew every every
Right,
classic.
sure.
I'm
Okay.
still learning them,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but yeah, no, it was definitely a new frontier and tonally so different. That was like the part that, because like honky tonk and rock and roll are pretty closely related musically in a lot of ways, and I like you could take like a Angus Young guitar solo from just about any song, and if you ran that through a different amp setup and maybe a telly through a Princeton reverb or something
And
with
made it
no gain,
major.
yeah, I mean, and then you're kind of in the same wheelhouse, the same type of licks. Um, and everybody's cross pollinating anyway, because country guys love rock and rock guys love country, and it's all kind of feeding off each other. But yeah, it was not playing with humbuckers and not having a big wall of gain and volume and sustain to fall back. It's very, very humbling.
Yeah. That's how I feel. This new song
Yeah.
that you just put out recently, Blacktop White Lines, I feel like this could be like a
Which
brother.
has a wall of gain and volume,
I was about
and
to say that actually, which actually sounds the
none of
opposite.
that applies. None of
None,
that applies to my
none of
new
that
record
applies
at
there.
all.
But
Yeah,
talking about
yeah,
the song, because
I
this
went back
actually,
to my comfort zone. Yeah,
you were like, give me one song on the record with the Marshalls or whatever it
yeah,
is, the
yeah.
Friedmans. What is this? Could be like a Brothers Osborne hit. Like this thing sounds so good,
Well, there you
and
go.
you wrote it. You
Yeah, with John Osborne and Jaron. Yeah, so there you go.
so does he?
Certainly
Because
in that wheelhouse.
I think did Jaron come in with that riff, and he sort of had that
He
kind of
did.
funky thing,
He did. Yeah. Yeah,
and
yeah. He had a demo of that riff and was just kind of like scatting stuff over it, and we were like, "Oh, great! Jaron did the heavy lifting. We got a song.
yeah,
Now we
we
just
got
got
a
to come
riff.
up with some words,
But it's
Yeah.
clever. Like it's actually a really clever song. It's like a fun little story told very concisely. It's like two verses, and it's like, oh my god, I've got a whole world here that's been painted.
Oh, right on. Oh, nice. Yeah, thank you. Well, that's always the hard part, is to get those ideas in there, without laboring the point too much. Yeah, because it's so easy to all of a sudden you've got like four verses written and half a chorus, and you're like, wait, what the fuck are we doing? But yeah, yeah, yeah. That one kind of shaped up to be like, it's kind of like turning a murder ballad on its head a little bit, you know.
How do you meet John Osborne? Like, I feel like he would be one of your favorite current guitar players right now.
Oh,
Like,
he is. He is. I mean, he's a beast. I love that guy's guitar playing, and it's always great when you're a fan of somebody and then you get to know them a little bit, and they're like every bit as cool as you hope they would be. I mean, he's just such a sweet dude. I actually ran into him on a flight out to Nashville recently, just randomly. We both happened to be sitting like across the aisle from each other. And this, from the moment he walked onto the plane, we're just talking shop, talking guitars.
have you seen his 1960 that he got? He got a like a
I don't think so.
1960 Les Paul recently.
Ooh.
That was crazy guitar. If you're with him, you gotta ask him about.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Will do.
How'd you meet him for the first time? Like, who put you in touch with him?
I I feel like, I mean, the first time I met John and TJ was, I think, when I interviewed them for Walking the Floor, which was years ago out in Nashville. And who put me in contact? It probably would have been Kendall Marvel, I think, probably put me in contact with him, but I don't honestly remember now. But let's just say that it was Kendall, because that would sound about right, because he's tight with them and writes with them a lot. Yeah, and they came over to my hotel room where I was staying, and I interviewed them, and they were just so funny and cool and easy to, just a good hang, and just stayed in contact with them over the years. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, those records are incredible. And this record sounds like it could be like a hit for them. Like, I'm surprised he didn't want to cut it. That
Well,
you were able to get
let's
it.
hope that they do, man.
Let's
Let's
hope
hope
that
that they
they
do.
do.
Yeah, let's start that petition right now.
Who's playing on this? Are you doing the guitars on this? Because I know Tom Bukovac played a little on this record. On that song
There's a bunch of
specifically.
us. Yeah,
Bunch of you guys.
there's a bunch of guitar players on there. So on the first two songs that we cut, I think we cut the whole record over the course of like three main sessions. I would go out to Nashville and record the basic tracks, and then I'd take that home and add, guitar solos or whatever and send it back to Jaron, and Jaron would take it home and he'd tweak on it and add harmony vocals and stuff. And then little by little over the course of a year or so, we got that thing done. But in that the first session we did was we recorded Blacktop White Lines and we recorded Dead and Gone, which I only thought about afterwards. Those are the first two songs that we put out off it. So those two songs kind of like were like, my first experience working with Jaron as a producer, and really, like sonically kind of different than anything I'd done before, and just kind of like pointed the way to maybe what we were going to do with this record. Kind of like, like anchor songs on the record. And yeah, so in that session, guitar playing wise, I'm playing guitar, Bukavac's playing guitar, and Charlie Warsham's doing all the anything that's acoustic, acoustic guitar, dobro, banjo, mandolin, whatever, any of that stuff is all Charlie. So there's a lot. It was really cool tracking with them too, because I never tracked like that with that many guitar players all playing on the session, and those guys would be like mixing up. I'm sitting there just struggling trying to nail my part down, and those guys every couple of takes are changing what they're doing, and before too long, you've got a lot of options and a lot of cool guitar stuff that I just wouldn't never have thought of or played, or it's cool. It's cool to have that all kind of together working off each other. But I think you really hear it in Dead and Gone, where there's like I've got that crazy micropog on my telly, so it's just all nasty and fucked up, and you're not really supposed to play chords with that, but I'm playing chords and it's all janky and sounds like a synth, and it's resonating all weird. And then Charlie's on the dobro on that song, and you've got Bukavac playing all that like kind of like swampy, it's like a tremolo or something on it, that business, and they just all kind of work together, we're all kind of sitting, obviously sitting in very different places, and it's cool. It's that cool stuff that you can't plan, or you don't plan, and you just go into the studio and it just happens because you've got great players on the track.
Did you pick? I mean, those guys are ace guys. Of course, you can't go wrong with them. But like, did you have a relationship with them, or was there a reason you picked those guys, Charlie and Tom? Or like, does Jaron pull them in and you go, let's do it? Like, how do you end up with those two guys to share the duty of guitar?
Yeah, I mean, I knew Charlie and Bukavac before that session, and of course loved their playing. But I think Jaron pulled them in, and then when he told me, I was stoked, because I just, they're just fantastic and just cool dudes, to be in the studio with.
Yeah, right. When your tour rig right now, I was looking, it's no amps. You've got the Strymon Iridium.
Yes.
Which is exactly what I'm using on fly dates. But I tried.
Oh, for real?
Absolutely. But I just bring my pedal board and my Iridium, which is the most freeing thing ever, because it's like I've got a whole rig in my suitcase with my guitar.
I'll tell you, it's kind of funny because now I've built this monster. You can see it on that episode of That Pedal Show that I did recently. You can see the whole thing in all its gory detail. It's my pedal board for my solo thing is so big now. It's like bringing an amp with you. I have it in like a giant Pelican. It's a little less like, I mean, it's still. I love that thing. I love that gig rig switcher. Makes it all work, and also the I've got on there that Walrus Audio Canvas stereo DI.
Yeah.
So I can have all my stereo delays and all that stuff, which is super fun. But yeah, I love it, man. It's, I've got like real quick. I just I was messing around. I had some people build me an Ableton rig for live, with the idea in mind that I was looking for a way, because I go out and do like proper solo shows, just me and an acoustic guitar, like from time to time. And I always get a little bored at those because I can't really play like guitar solos and stuff. And I just wanted to have something to be able to play against. So I was trying to figure out a way. We stemmed out all my records and loaded this thing up. And I was just kind of messing with it at my studio and trying to figure out, well, what could I use from my records to kind of play against and figure out a way to make that cool and work. And then there were some times where, like, my bass player was busy with something else, and me and the drummer would rehearse, and we'd be like, well, let's just turn on the track rig and see how we can just play along to that. And
Yeah.
so we had luckily done that a little bit, and then I was in the middle of doing shows in December, and my bass player and my pedal steel player both got COVID. So all of a sudden we were halfway through the shows, and lost half the band. So we just jumped into it, and we just went, well, this wasn't exactly what we were planning on doing, but we've got this thing, you know what I mean? It's either cancel the shows or figure this out real quick. So we just did it. And after a couple of shows, I was like, you know what? Let's if I'm already on in-ears and I'm already listening to a click, and I got to be on a click with the Ableton and all the stuff, and we're doing that whole thing. So let's see how this works. And we don't have a bassist on stage or a pedal steel player. Let's see how it works if I also don't have an amp. And so I stuck the Iridium on there, and I loved it because for that type of setup, especially like for my solo thing, I'm playing small clubs. Your amps, to me, never sound good in my in-ears.
No.
It just never does. You're like, nothing against local sound people, but like you're always like, I don't bring like a sound person out generally, and so you're kind of at the mercy of whoever just happens to be there. And it would always sound really rough, and getting that to sit right was hard. So having the Iridium, it's like your amp is just like beamed into your brain. It's so good.
Why not do like
So
a oh no, I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, so real quick, I went to the dark side, and I'm not coming back, man. I'm just like,
Yeah.
to be honest, like on a van tour, man, you need that. That's nice to have that extra space in the van that's not taken up by my two, you know, my
Twin
two
reverbs
deluxe
or
reverbs or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah.
What did you try a bunch of amp sims? Because I tried probably 3 or 4, and then I was like, the Iridium to me sounded the best by far and played the best.
The Iridium appealed to me the most for a couple of reasons. First off, the three amps that it's bundled with those are the three amps that I go to. It's a deluxe reverb, it's an AC30, and it's a Marshall. And
Yeah.
those are the three types of amps that I play. It's like they designed that thing just aimed at me. Plus, it's this big.
Yeah.
And it's just got knobs like an amp, so you don't have to like learn some entirely new. You don't have to program anything or learn some new language. It's just the simplicity and the specific amps that it comes with, and then the sound. To me, it just sounds amazing. I mean, it's blasphemous to say, but when you're dealing with like dirty power and your amp not being mic'd up right, it sounds better a lot of the time. I mean, let's just be honest. It does. It
I
sounds
was
better.
like, I was blown away, especially like for me, like I'll fly and we'll have backline stuff. And it's like, you never know what kind of backline deluxe reverb or what you're going to get backline. Like,
It ain't it ain't gonna be good though.
it's
It's
not
not
going to be
like,
good.
oh, I brought you my vintage '65 that's that's totally cherry.
Yes.
That ain't your backline.
No, it's like the amp that hasn't been serviced in 10 years. Like, that's the amp you get. Like,
Yeah,
so it's like
yeah.
the Strymon. I did maybe like 10 or 15 dates with it last year. And I was like, it also made me so happy that I was like, I'm fully self-contained. Like, I've got my flyboard and a guitar, and I'm ready to play a gig.
Yep.
Like, that blows my mind.
Oh, dude, I just toured the UK and did some shows over there, and I brought two tellies and my pedal board. That was it.
That was it.
Boom.
You're ready to rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Simple. Yeah.
No, what are you gonna say? Will you ever go Kemper?
I mean, I have never messed with those, but I mean, why not?
Yeah.
I have a Line 6 Helix that I've had for years that I've actually been using on this new guitar show thing that I was talking about. I just play through that because it's then I don't have to mic anything up, and I'm in my little podcasting room, and it sounds killer. It sounds amazing. You know what I mean? Like it's so yeah. I am 100% of the mindset of like these are all tools to get the job done, and if it sounds great, don't overthink it.
It also feels good. Like, it doesn't feel like an amp, but I don't mind the way it feels, the Iridium.
Yeah.
Like it's super easy to play. While we're on the topic, give us a pedal, Chris, that's maybe like an overdrive or something, a delay, or give me like a super underrated, under the radar pedal that you think more people should have on their board or know about?
Ooh, underrated pedal. Well, I've got a couple. And I don't know if they're underrated exactly because I don't honestly follow this stuff that closely. But I had never heard of it until Wampler sent it to me, and that is the Wampler Tumnus,
Oh, the
which is the
clone,
yes,
basically.
yeah, I
Yes.
love it, man. Yeah, it's I don't know if they have multiple versions of it. I have one that's like a mini pedal that fits real nice on my board, sounds amazing. It's the only overdrive I have on my solo rig. On my Foo Fighter rig, I have one of those KTR
The red
Klon,
ones, the new
the
ones.
red one.
Yeah.
Yeah. That I put in front of when I'm using my boxes. I'll usually have that thing. Well, if I want to grid it up like rock level, I'll put that in front of the box. For the Friedman on my Foo Fighter stuff, that's just amp gain. But for my solo thing, it's different, and so I usually have the Iridium set to the deluxe reverb, and then for a lot of what I'm doing, I've got that Tumnus on. But the other pedal that is like I'm pretty much have on all the time nowadays is that Strymon Deco, and I
Oh
have
yeah.
that set to that secondary wet dry thing where it's like tape coming out of one side and just dry coming out of the other. And I've run everything in stereo, so yeah, I love that thing. Uh oh, I think we're being invaded. Hold on one sec. Hold
Do,
on
do,
one sec.
do we have one of the cats?
I think so.
Let's see. Let's
We
see.
do. We do.
Let's see. Let's see.
Oh my goodness. I love how she just bangs and bangs and bangs at the door and then comes in all casual. Look at this
Look at
beast.
this. You
Look
look
at
like
this beast.
Blofeld. You look like Blofeld.
It's like it is exotic animal park here. Okay.
Oh my
On
God.
you go. On you go. I'm sure her brother is going to show up here before too long.
This is I love it though. It's all looking great. It's all working great. When you joined the Foo Fighters, you were 28 years old.
Yes.
Did you kind of feel like my whole life is falling apart and I'll never do anything great and like I'm too old to become a rock star? Like that's not that old,
Yes.
but I feel like when you're 28, you're freaking out about
Yeah.
that, right? Is that
Well,
what you were feeling at that time?
I do honestly, yeah, kind of in a way, and it's funny because when I look back at that time period, this first few years of being in the Foo Fighters, and even when I see pictures, I look like I'm 16 or something, you know. In my mind, I'm like a kid, but I really wasn't. Like I was a full grown, adult human, but like and had been for quite a while, you know. Um, so yeah, it's funny because I was playing in No Use for a Name, like because it's sort of trajectory of my of life back then was that I had moved to LA when I was 18 and like tried to make it and do all that stuff and played around in bands and nothing ever really worked out. And then I moved up to San Francisco in the mid 90s and joined No Use for a Name and then started like making records and going on tour and doing that whole thing. But I was beginning to feel that thing that you feel where you're like, well, the writing was kind of on the wall that scene and our I don't know, your sort of band's popularity or whatever was like diminishing, and this new stuff was coming up, and that scene was beginning to fade a little bit, So like I was aware of that, and that period right there, right before I joined Foo, was like I had dropped out of high school and never went to college, and I remember I went to, like took like a full load of classes at City College up in San Francisco, and was just kind of thinking I wasn't seriously thinking about like quitting the band or any kind of like radical life change or anything, but I was just kind of beginning to feel that thing like, what comes next, and not like in a bad way, not in a negative way, but like, I was stoked. Had made some records, I'd done some tours. I certainly didn't feel like, oh gee shucks, this is terrible, like, but I didn't think that something like Foo Fighters was ever going to come along at that point. You know what I mean? I mean, rock and roll is game, and I was like you said, I wasn't exactly young anymore. So that's the reality of that. And then luckily, I joined a band with a bunch of people that I was all, we were all like a little, we were all seasoned a little bit at that point. You
Yeah,
know what I
right,
mean?
right.
Yeah.
When
So it was perfect.
when you joined the band, did you instantly feel like your position was secure, or did you feel like
Fuck no. Are you crazy?
when did you feel like what like first of all, did you feel
I
like
don't feel like that
you
now.
don't feel like
I
that
mean,
now? How's that
I'm not. I'm
possible?
just because I'm not hardwired to feel that way. I just do not. That's not how I am. That's not what I am. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if, like, yeah, I like, I can rationalize that, like, it's been a long time, and like, that there is some level of security or whatever. But I just don't think like I'm just so hardwired to think like, oh my god, this is all going to go away, and I'm going to get a job at Starbucks, and fuck, what am I going to do now? I don't know. That's like, I wish I could let that go, but I can't.
At least you'd be a manager at a Starbucks. You probably wouldn't be working the
Yeah,
front line.
that's right. I'd step right into management. I tell you, that was one of the funniest jobs I ever had. I had a lot of goofy jobs in my younger years, and when I was in No Use for a Name, like, it it was sort of like being a full-time musician, except that we just didn't make that much money. So I would come home from tour, and within a couple of months, I'd have to go get a job delivering pizzas or whatever. And I got a job at this little coffee shop this was just before Starbucks had really taken over the world, but it was like that kind of thing. But it was it was kind of like a bakery coffee shop. And part of the job was, people would order cakes, and you'd have to, like, write like "Happy Birthday, Larry" on it or
Yeah,
whatever. And
right, right.
which I could never do. And I was just a terrible employee at that point. I didn't care. It was just something to fill I just needed to pay rent before the next tour, kind of thing. And I was like probably like 27 or 26 or something, by then. And I remember the woman that was like the manager was like pretty young and maybe in college. And she would just be so mad at me all the time because I was just the worst employee, and I would just be getting rung up every day by like a 19-year-old, and I'd just be like, I just can't get it. I'm sorry, I can't do the icing. I'm trying. I just can't do it.
I don't think I could do it either.
Uh,
I'd be horrible at that. I
no,
bad
it's hard.
handwriting with a pen and a pencil. I can't even do that,
Yeah,
let alone
yeah,
cake.
yeah.
Did you feel like
I'm
looking back
sorry,
on
I'm
it?
late again, but I'm
Yes.
still drunk from last night. What do you want from me?
What do you want me? I'm trying to sober up here.
Yeah.
Come on. This
Yeah,
isn't
I was
my
at the
fault.
Swingin' Utters show at the Trocadero, and I'm still technically pretty drunk. But I made it.
But I made it. Of course, the writing
Yeah.
on the cake is not going to be clean. So what do you want from me? Come on.
Right.
Did you feel like you were like looking back on yourself though? Do you feel like you had to shed a lot to become like now I listen to you and like you're so good. When you joined the Foos, do you feel like you were a good enough guitar player to truly be in that band, or do you think something else pushed you into that band?
I mean, I'd certainly had to adapt, for you, like, I think what it's interesting, even before Foos, like, what I wasn't, I never really thought about or cared much about rhythm guitar playing. I just never thought about it. I did it, like, as a teenager and stuff. But I was always thought of myself as like wanting to be a lead guitar player, and that was really where my energy went. And so when I joined No Use for a Name, I had to adapt to that, which made me, there were guitar solos in No Use for a Name, but it was a lot of doing all that like really fast stuff. So I had to figure out how to do that and kind of throw myself into that. And then even with the Gimme Gimmes, was I had to work on my rhythm playing. And when I joined Foos, the differences were, I hadn't played in a band that was like at those tempos for a while. You know what I mean? So I had to figure out what to do with myself as a player when you're not going like all that sort of thing. Because it's more space, in
Yeah,
your
right.
playing. And there were like no guitar solos in the Foo Fighters. And this is like coming out of the 90s where like guitar solos had gotten pretty illegal. So just sort of you just had to adapt, focus more on your rhythm playing. And then even like, having some delays and some effects and things, and some mellower tones, and not having, like we talked about before, that big wall of gain and everything. So it just made me I think ultimately, like, I I never doubted that I could do it or anything. Like, I didn't feel like, oh my God, this is so hard. But it was like the hard part is like learning a whole, 3 albums worth of material, and being able to play it confidently,
Yeah.
and but but it wasn't like, the emphasis in our band has never been on polished perfection. That's not what we are. So there was no expectation of like, you have to come in and play this absolutely freaking perfect like the record. It was never that, you know what I mean?
Right.
And still isn't that, so it's like, it was always more, just a looser thing than that.
Didn't Taylor give you some advice where didn't he say like your job here is to find your own lane, or what did he say? To find
Yeah.
your own
Yeah.
space in
Yeah.
the band?
Totally.
What,
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
what did he tell you?
It was something like that. I wish I could remember exactly because it was wise words, and I definitely like really tried to apply it. Like he's something to the effect like make yourself an asset here, or something like that. Like do something. The basic idea was like you get like what you just said. Like you got to find your own space and hold it down. You know.
What do you think that is? Like in that, and is it? I feel like you're sort of the most lead solo player, but maybe that's not true in that band. Is that what you would say
Yeah, I
your
mean,
role is,
there's
or?
yeah, for sure, but there isn't a ton of guitar solo stuff. But like I think that has also evolved over the years where like if you look at like my pedal board versus Pat and Dave's pedal board, I got
Yeah.
like the whole world on it. I got everything on it. And I've sort of like I don't know. I've become I'm not like super duper effect guy, but like that's if there's going to be some delays bouncing around or a flanger on, it's probably going to be me. You know what I mean?
They give
More
you
than
the
there's
effect stuff.
yeah, like the color guy. You
Pat
know,
and Dave, they just don't want the pedal boards. They just throw it all on you.
that's right. Dave in particular keeps his pedal board very clean and simple. He's got
Yeah.
a couple things,
Yeah. You're the guy who does it.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because we've all our gear has been, we're getting ready to do shows and stuff. So we're all sort of like, switching up our gear a little bit here and there. And I just had Dave Friedman just built me a insane new pedal board that I'm just in love with right now. It's very cool.
So someone you're definitely not going to give me the exclusive, but there is a drummer playing with you guys in these rehearsals, I'm assuming. Or maybe
I
not.
can't get in.
Can't
Can't get
get
into
into it.
that.
Can't get
I
into
just
it.
say I'm so hesitant to, and not because I don't want to, but because it's just the world we live in that everything you say gets turned into clickbait and not by you, but by like but by other people, or intentionally misinterpreted to mean something that you never said or meant or whatever.
Yep.
So I'm just really hesitant to talk about any specific Foo Fighter stuff, but like we're going to be hitting the road soon, so
Can't wait. Can't
stay
wait.
tuned.
Stay
Yeah.
tuned. Can't wait. No, that yeah, of course. So solo career, solo albums coming out. Lost at Sea. When's the actual album coming out?
The album comes out in October. Yeah, but we've got and we just put out the second track, Dead and Gone, and then there's a couple more tracks coming out before the album comes out. And if you sign up for my email list,
Yeah,
kids,
plug the email
you
list.
get
Let's go.
well, you'll also there's another unreleased track that gets sent to you right away, and you can find that. You can sign up on my website.
You're on a
Yeah.
label for this, which I didn't realize. But what's the label that you're on?
So here in the States, it's a label called Blue Elan, and then over in the UK, it's coming out through a label called Snake Farm. Ooh,
Yeah.
I think one of the other cats. I think we got another cat
both
coming
cats before the end here. Come on.
in. Okay, hold on one sec. Like, he's being a little shy. Hold on one sec. Oh, here he is. Okay, hold on. Hey, buddy. Oh boy, hold on. Oh boy. This guy is the real monster.
This one
Look
looks
at this
more
fella.
like Blofeld's cat, actually. This is unbelievable. Look at these
This
guys.
this is Whiskey. He's kind of our shy guy, but he's super sweet.
Look at this guy.
I know.
God.
They're great.
Okay, so the record comes out in October, and 2
Yes,
songs
sir.
are out now.
Yeah. Yep.
This one right here, the oh my god, now I'm blanking on the name of it.
Dead and Gone.
White Lines.
Oh, blank. Yeah.
Blacktop White Lines. I listened to this thing like 10 times. It was
Oh,
so
nice.
fun. You gotta go listen. If you're listening to this, you gotta go listen to Blacktop White Lines. It
Yes,
sounds like a
please
Brothers
do.
Osborne hit, but it's like different.
Yeah.
It sounds like Chris Shiflett. It's unbelievable.
It's like a Brothers Osborne hit if Brothers Osborne were worse singers.
Yeah. Do you think like Seth Godin has this really great quote where he's like, people always say like you should do what you would do if you knew you wouldn't fail, and he always says like, I like to say, what would I do if I knew I would fail? And those are the things you should really do in life. With this
Yeah.
solo project, like, I mean, the music's so good. You played the Ryman opening for Blackberry Smoke, like you're having massive
Yeah.
success. But is this the kind of thing where you're like, I'm trying to headline like Ryman's in theaters and maybe even bigger than that? Or are you like, if this fails, I'm just doing it for the creative outlet and the music? Like, is that enough of a reason? Or are you like, hey, let's push this and let's make this like really fucking big?
With my solo stuff, I mean, the thing that I never am able to really do is like I've never put out a record and toured it for 2 years. You know what I mean? So, I'm always sort of fitting in shows in the cracks. So it's definitely gotten better over the years. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, like well into, I mean, I'm sure it'll still happen, but like, dude, I'll go out and if I try to go out on tour, it's like you got to play somewhere on a Tuesday night, and you're probably playing like a C market, and there's like 25 people there. So like it ain't easy. So it's like would I like it to would I like to be able to sell more tickets? Of course, you know what I mean? Of course, no question. But um, I'm also probably overly seasoned and cynical about how things work. And so if you're not going to like jump in your van and go tour it for tour it hard for the next 2 years, it's hard to build that. But I don't worry about it. You know what I mean? I've got a pretty busy life as it is, with my family and with Foos and stuff. So that's all full time stuff. So I just try to enjoy the shows, and I like it's a different outlet of my guitar playing. It's a different outlet of my songwriting and singing and doing all that stuff, and it's just super fun.
Is
Um,
it?
so
Yeah,
if
yeah.
hey man, if we could sell a few hundred more tickets per city, sign me up, baby.
Is it hard to be a rock star dad because it's like you dropped out of high school, it's like you had this audition, now you're in the biggest band in the world. Like I've heard you say something interesting, which is when you talk to your kids, you always say I'm going to work, or not like I'm going to the
Oh
gig or I'm
yeah,
going to the studio.
yeah,
But
yeah.
like they have to give you so much shit, like or do you catch them like drinking or doing high school things? And how do you have any authority on them? Like I feel like they hold
Oh
they
my
hold
God, dude.
this over you. They must.
You're getting into my weak spot right here. It is so hard, man. It's so hard because I'm a modern dad, man. My kids know everything about me, and they know I'm a high school dropout. They know what my past is and all that stuff, and I'm really proud to say my kids are just so much smarter than I was at that age, and they're so much better, just better people and wiser and have better heads on their shoulders than I ever did when I was at those same respective ages. So, yeah, it's hard sometimes when you're ringing them up for not doing their homework, and they're like, "Dad, you dropped out of high school. How would you even know?" Or like, something like, you're trying to remind them to do their chemistry homework, and they're like, "Dad, you never even took chemistry.
Yeah, like
Like,
how do
what
you have
what
any
you don't know anything about this?" And I'd be like, "Okay, but I do know that you should do your homework. That I know."
that I yeah,
Yeah.
is your wife the one who helps with that, or is she
Oh, we
you know,
both do. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
My wife did graduate high school and
Yeah,
even
yeah, that's
even
what I was
went to
gonna ask. Yeah,
college.
yeah.
You know what I
And
mean?
went
So
to
yeah,
college.
so
Yeah, yeah. She's a
yeah,
doctor.
so she does have authority to say that. But yeah, no, it's you can always fall back on. I don't want you to be like me, man. You don't
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
be
yeah.
this.
But what are
Yeah.
you
So
talking
that.
about? I feel like you would want to be this. This is good. This is a good thing you got going here.
Well, none of them really seem to have like my youngest is still playing is gotten really into playing guitar recently, but I don't know that any of them will pursue music or anything. So I don't know how much my life or my working life or whatever is going to be much of an influence to them beyond just you know work hard and grind it out. Like that they can definitely take from what I've done. That's pretty universal.
Yeah. That's the dream though,
Yeah.
to like show your kids some riffs though, or like to go guitar shopping with them, or like to
Well,
isn't that
we
stuff fun?
you know what's fun is like with my youngest, like I said, he's really into guitar. So like it's guitar shopping is a little different than it was. Like I never went guitar shopping. I didn't. I just had one guitar. There was no guitar shopping, but for guitar shopping for my 15-year-old is he goes, "Do you have a flying V?" I go, "Yeah, I got a couple." He goes, can you bring it home?" I'm like, "Totally." So bring that thing home, or bring home a Strat, or bring home a Explorer, or bring home a Les Paul, all that kind of stuff. Hey, let me
Where do
bring
you
home a pedal board so you can mess around with this stuff, So that's guitar shopping in the Shiflett house, which is
where do you
fun.
bring it home from? Like the Foo Fighters warehouse or
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. If you were my dad growing up, it would have been incredible. It would have been unbelievable.
I at one point I had to buy like soft cases for both my Explorer and my Flying V, which was funny because then he would like take them to school.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah.
What's the story where like when you joined the band, Dave just brought you to a guitar store and he was like, you need more guitars. And he just said, buy guitars.
Yeah. Well, I only had one functional guitar at that point, so we were going out on the road, so you got to have a backup or two. So we went guitar shopping, man, and still those guitars are still in heavy rotation. That's my white Les Paul and my Explorer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my God, I love it. Okay, here's like
Oh yeah.
here's a random fan question that I want to know. Maybe you can't answer this, but I've always wondered this. When you travel with the Foos from gig to gig, let's say you're in America, are you on a bus? Do you fly? How do you get from gig to gig?
It really depends on the tour, if it's like, if you're doing a long tour, that's like all kind of in a straight line or whatever, then yeah, you're probably on a bus. If you're, so, but it's a lot of times it'll be plane these days as well.
When you're on the bus, do you ever go into these like small town convenience stores in the middle of nowhere? And because we do
Yeah,
this,
of course.
but we do this, and I go, if I was super famous, this would be hilarious. Like here I am walking into the small town convenience store in the middle of nowhere. It's like, oh my, like I think about how crazy that would be. Like, do people freak out when you walk into these gas stations?
No, because I'm not Billie Eilish. Like, I mean, you know what I mean? It's probably more the reaction like, who the fuck is that guy getting off that tour bus?
That's what they say.
Well, I don't know. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I feel like they would freak out, like, or I'd freak out, like it's crazy. Like you're in these probably local off the road gas stations, and then in walks the Foo Fighters, right?
It happens. It does happen.
It happens. Oh my God,
Yeah.
Chris, can't thank you enough for coming on, man. The new record "Lost at Sea" is going to be out in October,
Yes,
and
sir.
Black Top White Lines and White Lines is out now, which you have to listen to. The song is so good. And Dead and Gone is out too right now from the new record, which is also really great. And listen to this
lots of widdly guitar solos. Lots of widdly
you
guitar
gotta
solos.
listen to this song. You gotta think about Charlie Worsham and Tom Bukovac and Chris Shiflett trading guitars and licks, and they're all in the room making it happen.
That's right. It's all in the soup.
I love it. Okay, if
Man,
you have
thanks for having me on today.
Absolutely. When you do your podcast, do you obsess over the first question that you're going to ask someone? Like, is that the most important question?
It can be, because I feel like most of the time when you're doing an interview, you don't necessarily know the person. And you've got that first like 10 or 15 minutes is like you're sort of feeling each other. Like, is this going to be lighthearted? Right? Are we going to be super serious? Like, or like you're sort of
that
getting
to me is like
that's
make
like
or break, right? Yeah,
you're getting to know each other, and then it can start to get good. I always find the most important thing though is to press record before the person gets on the Zoom call, because it's that first interaction is oftentimes when you get the best chit chat.
Oh my God, I learned that so early. Like I had Billy Gibbons on early, and he said the best, most fascinating shit like right at the beginning, and we weren't recording.
Yeah.
And now, it's like when I go into a studio to record, I'm like, hey, start recording before I even walk in. Like, just have it running. Like,
dude, when I interviewed Merle Haggard,
that was a great interview.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
It's one that I'm probably the most proud of, just that I got to do it.
Yeah.
But we sat on his bus for probably 2 hours, just shooting the shit and him telling stories. And before we did the interview, and then we did the interview, and I was like, oh my God, I wish I'd been running record the whole time, because that was like, just magic.
And then sometimes when you say like, hey, now we're recording, like we're recording now, sometimes your guests like that will freak out versus like,
oh, totally.
Just roll into it. Come on,
yes.
right? What do I know? I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Speaking of
Well,
which, I actually have to bounce to another
absolutely.
interview right now.
Oh my God. Well, give them my
I know.
best.
Action packed.
Chris, great to see you. Really appreciate you taking the time, and I'm
No
sure I'll
worries.
see you out on the road somewhere rocking it. So can't wait.
That was fun. Awesome, man.
Absolutely. Talk